Finally, we get to the making of a bug net. If you're going to have a fully enclosed bug net, then probably the easiest thing is to make a whole cocoon that encases the hammock. Easiest to do, uses the most material, is the heaviest. Another approach is to be minimalist, goes just a head net on. Something beyond that I've shown in some of my other videos is to have sort of a half net that comes down to the waist, with the understanding that your legs are going to be inside of a quilt, something like that. Another approach that I've taken is to have an enclosed bug net, which is not a full cocoon so much as it is a full wrap around only the body. And so the bug net goes over the top and then is held to the hammock body with some elastic of some kind. If you're an experienced user of a Hennessy hammock or a war bonnet, sort of come accustomed to having a nice zipped-in bug net. And so that's sort of the top of the line, and that's what we're going to do here, is to show kind of the top of the line zipped-in bug net for a bridge hammock. I like it. It's worth it to me to do it for my own. It's certainly worth it to the guy who's taking delivery of the Rhino Bridge to have that done. And so we're going to see how that goes on his hammock from start to finish. So let's start from the start. Now we're going to put in a zip-in bug net. It's going to be zippered on 3 sides. That creates some problems for us, because here at the corner of the hammock, one side is a little bit different level than the other side, and plus there's a corner. So we need to bridge that somehow, and the way I've done that is to create a little triangle, and we're going to sew the triangle so that the hypotenuse is crossing from one edge to the other. We'll sew it on one side and sew it down on the other. So the zipper will come along off of the webbing, across the hypotenuse, and then along that edge, making a nice smooth transition. But I'm pick up now to finish off the bug net. In preparation for that, I sewed in a triangle that I showed you before in each of the corners. One of the challenges for that is, because of this webbing right here, it's hard to get the very point of the corner sewed in. And so I end up having to do that bit by hand, which is a little bit of a hassle, but that's what one needs to do. So the corners are all sewn in now, and so the next thing to do is to measure and cut the bug net to fit to the hammock. Fitting the bug net to the hammock turns out to be one of the more delicate aspects of the whole deal. This particular hammock is going to be 73 inches long from center edge down the hammock to the other center edge. And if all I was needing to do was to take a rectangular-ish sort of piece of mesh and then sew it along the edges, then the length of it would be pretty straightforward, 73 inches. It is, of course, not that easy, in part because we have constructed these triangles on the corner. So we're going to cut the bug net into 3 pieces. There'll be the main piece, and then at each end we will have a mesh triangle. It's about 5 inches high. And the triangle is going to serve to lift the bug net up a little higher over the head, and we will sew it along the bottom edge, and then it will go trailing along and meet partway up in this triangle, and then the main body of the mesh will come along, meet here, and then trail up the edge like so. So getting the dimensions of this just right are a little bit tricky. It requires a certain amount of geometry, a certain amount of trigonometry, and a certain amount of luck. And one of the things that I will do when I cut the main portion of the bug net is to leave a little extra, because it's always easier to deal with a little too much mesh at a corner than not have enough mesh at a corner. So let's now size up the main portion of the bug net. So I've cut now a rectangle of bug net. This particular roll is 52 inches wide, and I cut a length at 74 inches. And then I folded it over because I'm going to cut an arc, and I want the arc to be symmetric. So at the head end right here, the distance from the center fold, the white line that you see, is 15 inches there, so we doubled over it. 30 inches for the base of that mesh triangle. Down at the foot end, it's 10 inches, so the base of the triangle is 20 inches. And then I've sort of hand-drawn a parabola-ish sort of curve from the center to the ends at both of these. And I haven't done any fancy math, I just sort of eyeballed it. And so the next thing I'm going to do is pin those pieces together so they don't move, and then I will cut along the line that's etched by the cord that you see. And then I will put edging, bias tape edging, on the main piece, and then we'll be ready to start talking about zippers. So it's time now we can do some zippers. What I've got here is a roll of 2.5 size zipper that I got from Quest Outfitters. It's a continuous roll, so I can make it as long as I want. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to square off the end and then separate just a little bit, like so. On the zipper I'm going to have 2 double tab pulls, like so, one on each end. I'm going to do one first now because when I put the zipper in, I'm going to fit it in the hammock and then sew it in as I go along, and then when I find out that I'm done, then I'll cut the zipper and then I'll put on the other pull. Now, putting on these pulls is a bit of a trick, so let's have a close look at how that typically goes. So on the zipper, one side is flat, and the other, the zipper protrudes up. If you look on the zipper pull, there's a match, there's a slot. I want to put the slider in evenly on both sides. Once I've done that, just sort of push and pull a little bit. Push it down. I do think I've got it. There we go. So the zipper's on, and the next thing that I'm going to do is put bar tacks right across there to keep the zipper pull from going out, and then I'm going to sew the zipper onto the hammock. This now is the head end of the hammock. And so this would be the port side in nautical terms. I want to have the zipper run along the starboard side. So what we will do is we will bury this end like so, and then start to sew the edge of the zipper along the hemming that we see there. We've sewn the zipper all the way across the head end now when we're approaching the starboard side. And just wanted to point out something that I've added. Before I zip the zipper onto the webbing, I put in yet another strip of bias tape. And the reason for that is that when the webbing's under tension, if the zipper is sewn directly to the webbing, then the zipper goes very taut. And I didn't like that. I found that if I separate the zipper from the webbing just by this little bit of extra bias tape, then it pulls much easier and much less chance of seams ripping and the like. The zipper is now embedded all the way around, down across the head, on the starboard side, and then across the foot. The next thing to do is to embed in the webbing here a device that can be used so that when the bugnet's not in use, it can be rolled up and then fastened. So I'll take this bit of shock cord here. I took 18 inches of shock cord. I will toggle at the end, and I will embed it using a bar tack right about like so. And then when the bugnet is sewn in over the top of this, and then rolled, I can bring this around and then put it through that loop, and then that'll contain the bugnet up onto the side. Now that the body's ready to accept the bugnet, we'll piece together the 3 pieces that comprise of it. Here's the main body, and then the triangle. This one is for the foot end. So I'm going to pin it along here, and then I will run a seam, and then I will have the full bugnet, and then we'll fit it to the body. This is a pretty good time now to put on tabs that we'll use to pull the bugnet up off of the hammock, attach it to a ridge line. So here is a corner, here is an end, the foot end, and what I'm going to do, or what I have done now, is I've taken a tab of grosgrain and sewn it on the inside. I'm going to take a matching tab and sew it on the outside. It's going to protect the bugnet itself from a lot of strain. And then on top of that, I'm going to take some of the grosgrain, which I've doubled over, and form a loop, and I'll sew the loop down on these 2, and then this loop will be a place where we can attach some shock cord and run it up to the ridge line. Here's the finished tab, grosgrain on both sides. Next thing I'm going to do is create an anchor for an interior ridge line. So the idea is I'm going to push a hole through here, then run some cord up around this loop, and then anchor it on the inside. I have just the tool for that, which is a hand awl. See if I can do this now without punching a hole in my finger. So that I'm through, what I'm going to do is I will attach on the inside a little bead like so, and then I can attach ridgeline to that bead. And so this loop will anchor to that loop outside with a bead for an interior ridgeline. Next step is to pin the bugnet to the body of the hammock. Now there's all sorts of things we have to keep straight. Now the idea is going to be to pin this to the zipper and around, starting at the middle, so that whatever inaccuracies there are with respect to the edge of the bugnet and the edge of the hammock, then they will be evened out at both ends, and then we can deal with them there. So I'm going to disappear now. I got a lot of pinning to do, and then we'll have a look and see what sort of corrections we might need to make. Oftentimes when I finish the bugnet, I'll fit it in at the head end, and then sew it down the edges, and then I'll have some excess, hopefully, at the back, and maybe fit a cap at the end. This time I thought that I would try planning it all out in advance, and that mostly worked. As you recall, I added an extra inch to the length of the bugnet, more than I thought I would need. One thing I didn't do, though, and I should have done, was to measure the arc cut, because I didn't match that to the arc cut of the hammock itself, and because of that, it turns out that I was off. And so what happened after I have pinned the bugnet in the center and then equally out to the ends is that I have, about maybe 3 extra inches of netting at each corner to deal with. And so actually it doesn't look too bad, but what I can do with this 3 extra inches is I could just fold it over, and I would have a little fold in the bug netting, and I've done that before. It doesn't look too bad. But I'm going to be a perfectionist on this, and I think what I'll do is that I will cut a dart in this, and I'll just take a tuck, and I'll make this little extra bit go away. So I've got some sewing to do. After I have sewn up to the little extra bit here, then I will cut the dart and finish it all off, and it'll be very pretty, I'm sure. So the dart taking is done now. Came out pretty well, I think. You can see a little taken in right there. So the next step in the process is to sew in a little ditty bag. So I've made this out of mesh, as you can see. Use bias tape on all the corners. It's 12 inches wide and I guess maybe 8 or 9 inches deep. So I want to get this bag centered on the head end, so I folded it over, found out where the midpoint is and the line I'm going to be sewing, and put a pin there. I'll go to the head end of the hammock and define the center. Bring the ends together, center right there, and now I can take a pin like so. And now all I need to do to find the center point to sew this on is to align this pin with that pin and get it started. And the way I'll do this is we'll start sewing from the center out on both sides, and that way it will stay centered. Not a big problem at all. Important that this be done last, because all sorts of things going on the inside here. Wanted to make sure that we've got the zipper on there. This is going to be the last thing to go on. Now we've got the GrizzBridge Rhino version. Looks pretty much like most GrizzBridges I've made. The one improvement that this one has over others is an interior ridge line. Also on the inside is an interior pocket right here, so that's good for putting one's glasses or wallets or things like that. Some things to note here is the bias tape between the zipper and webbing. So the zipper is a little bit looser, and so that's good. Here's where I took the dart in to take in the extra bug net. So that worked out quite nicely. That's all very tidy. Here's the tab, the bug netting, a little bit of lightweight shock cord, and then a mitten hook, and then a line here that's pressed on so that it can be adjustable. So like my other GrizzBridges, the bug net folds away off to the side. The addition of this interior ridge line, though, complicates things just a little bit. We want to have that be rolled up too, so I'm bringing it to the outside so that then as we roll and rolling from the middle, then it gets caught up in the middle and is out of the way, where you want it to be. So there we are, another successful completion of a GrizzBridge. . 。 . 。 . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . So there we are, another successful completion of a GrizzBridge. This one is going to the Lazy River Rat, so good luck with this, Lazy River Rat. We've got a nice double body here so that those big old mosquitoes that you got down in Louisiana can't bite through. We've got a bug net so they can't bite through. You're going to be plenty cozy, I think, and look forward to hearing about your travels, about your hikes down there in the bayous with your grandsons. And there we are, ready for a nice Louisiana nap.